I want to discuss the criminal ramifications involved in this incident as well as the civil. And so what I realized so far, there are 3 individuals who were arrested. I mentioned the charges, but a civil lawsuit was recently filed, y'all. And let me tell you something. That lawsuit is 59 pages long. Y'all, that's a dissertation. I'm telling you, that lawyer sued everybody and their grandma.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He bought his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.
Where you at, beautiful people? How you doing? How you living? How life treating you? Welcome to another episode of Call Your First Witness. You already know it's your boy K Will checking in. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited about today's show. And listen, I'm gonna jump right into it. So today is gonna be an interesting topic for me. I'm not gonna lie, I sort of struggled in my preparation with this topic because in many ways, man, I almost feel like I'm talking about family. I want to discuss a very tragic case that a lot of you probably heard of. It's the case involving the death of Caleb Wilson. All right. For those of you who do not know, Caleb Wilson was a student at Southern University in Baton Rouge, to be specific, because there is a Southern University in New Orleans. All right, same affiliation. And Caleb Wilson at the time was 20 years old, going to school for mechanical engineering. He was part of the Southern University marching band, affectionately known as the Human Jukebox. And unfortunately, as he was going through the initiation process, right, trying to become a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, he lost his life, right? This story happened in February early this year. The allegations are it was a hazing incident, all right? As a result, 3 people were arrested. 1 individual was charged with manslaughter, criminal hazing, and 2 other individuals were charged with criminal hazing. Criminal hazing is a felony. Manslaughter, as you already know, is considered a murder. It carries up to 40 years in prison. And so, y'all, it was hard for me because we're talking about Southern University, all right? If you don't know, Southern University is my alma mater. A lot of what you see, I attribute it obviously to my mother, my father, my brothers and sisters, all my family and friends who are near and dear to my heart. But you got to understand, a lot of what you see is a derivative of Southern University, the college, and Southern University Law Center. And if I could keep it real, I'm not a lawyer if it's not for that institution. Now, why do I say that? Mainly because to talk about the unfortunate circumstances that befell Caleb Wilson, we got to talk about the ills. We got to talk about the misfortunes. We got to talk about the underbelly of Greek life. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about something that happens not only at Southern University, not only across town at LSU, but we're talking about a culture that is pervasive across the country when we're talking about institutions of higher learning. And to be real, man, it's not just at the colleges and the universities, right? We're talking about in the employment environment, in the military. But if we're going to be real, if we're talking about hazing, probably the first thing you think of is the Greek organizations. And so it's hard for me because if I'm talking about Southern, 9 times out of 10, I'm talking about them in a positive light. Or I'm talking about the challenges of something as simple as getting your financial aid, right? That's the worst I'm telling you about Southern University. But that was part of the experience at Southern. That was the beauty of attending there. The day-to-day challenges you had just for something as simple as making sure you registered on time and the system didn't shut down before you got the class that you wanted because you stayed up all night on JAG call. You understand? I'm showing my age because I'm talking about registering on the phone. So, but what I'm saying is it's hard for me to bring this up. And I want to be careful because I don't want this to come across as I'm singling out the Greek life at Southern or any institution. In this case, particularly the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I got real good friends in that fraternity. You don't need me to tell you we can't paint them with a broad brush and say just because an alleged hazing happened, and I gotta say alleged, y'all. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I gotta wait for all the facts. I know it's unfortunate to what happened to Caleb Wilson, and all arrows points to the fact that this was in fact hazing, but at the same time we still have to wait to get all the evidence. Y'all know me. I gotta give you the perspective from the criminal defense standpoint, right? And that's kind of a segue into my initial thought process. When this news first came out, and a lot of us could remember when we first got the news, the first thing I can think of is obviously Caleb, what happened to him, but then his parents. And I think that's just the parent in me, you know, that's the last news you want to get. And so, man, I just felt for them. I didn't know Caleb Wilson. I didn't know his parents. You know, I heard he was from the New Orleans metro area. I think Kenner to be exact. But I don't know. I just because I got warm blood in my veins, I felt for him. I felt for his parents. I felt for his family. But I must tell you, my other immediate thoughts were the other individuals involved in this incident, right? The other people who played a part in Caleb Wilson's death. I don't know. Maybe it's the criminal defense in me. Maybe it's the experience I have on a day-to-day basis when young men, some of them look like kids, are sitting in my office, or I'm meeting with them at the jailhouse, and y'all, it's a dark place for them. It's pitch black, right? Because their whole life just turned upside down, you know, and I gotta think again. I don't know all the facts. I don't know all the evidence, but I gotta think that morning, that day when they woke up, the plans were not to take somebody's life. The plans were not to do anything criminal, right? The plans were maybe part of this initiation process, maybe part of this culture, maybe carrying out a historical ritual, a historical rite of passage, if you will. But nothing criminal, nothing to really lead to somebody being significantly hurt, nothing to lead, of course, for somebody to die. And so I'm thinking about these people, and I'm thinking about their family, and sometimes even your family and your friends are doubting you, right? And they're hearing a lot of stuff and they're getting a lot of information. And it's the defense lawyer who's saying, let's just hold up a second. Let's gather all the information. Let's not rush to judge my client. Let's not jump to conclusions. You got to understand what's being reported is not the full story. And for this particular matter, I do believe what we have heard so far is not the full story, because I can point to a situation that causes me to question out the gate the full nature of this incident. You got to understand, just recently, not too long ago, a civil lawsuit was filed. I want to discuss the criminal ramifications involving this incident as well as the civil. And so what I realized so far, there are 3 individuals who were arrested. I mentioned the charges, but a civil lawsuit was recently filed, y'all. And let me tell you something. That lawsuit is 59 pages long. Y'all, that's a dissertation. I'm telling you, that lawyer sued everybody and their grandma. I'm not lying to y'all. And so what jumped out at me off the bat was, in a civil lawsuit, the plaintiff's lawyer, the attorney that represents Caleb Wilson's family, named 11 defendants who are directly responsible for Caleb Wilson's death. 11 individuals who are presently or was a part of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. 11, right, who were essentially directly responsible for his death, allegedly. And so if you got 11 civilly responsible, and he named also Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, he named the local chapter, he named buku chapters, y'all. But he also named 11 individuals, right? He named Southern University. You already know they were going to get pulled in. But the significance about the 11 individuals tells me there were more individuals involved. And look, y'all, I'm not Greek, never had a desire to be Greek, never had anything against it, but that just wasn't my cup of tea. It just wasn't. I'm not talking about in terms of what they stand for and the great things they do and the whole college experience. When I talk about my experience at Southern, I don't know if I can tell the full story of my experience without talking about the Greek life. I'm talking about, man, they were every much a part of that experience, right? The Qs, the Deltas, the AKA the Alphas, right? The Sigmas. I mean, imagine being on the yard and they weren't present. You see what I'm saying? Just imagine, and not just the yard, not just Southern, any institution. Imagine that experience that you had or you're having without Greek life. And so I love that experience. I love that I shared that experience with just my friends, some who were in the organizations, some who weren't. If the Qs were throwing a party, you might want to be there. I'm just saying. If the Cap was throwing a party, you might want to be there too. I'm just saying. Back then, before there was Perfect 10, there was the Kappa party. There was the Q party. And so what I'm really saying is, it wasn't my cup of tea because I heard the stories. A lot of you heard the stories, the initiation process. Let's not sugarcoat it. Whether it was true or not, we heard the stories. And I was always like, whatever small thought I had joining the Greek organization, I'm like, nah, I can't sign up for that. I can't sign up for the initiation process where I got to go through this process where I'm going to get beat on. I'm going to probably, who knows the things that I got to go through just to get past that line, just to be respected, right? Just to become one of them. And it was just like, bro, I just can't do it. We going to have problems. I was trying to be a walk-on at Southern University. If you knew me back in the late 90s, early 2000s, football was my life. And I wanted to play for Southern. Actually, I wanted to play for LSU. I wanted to play for Nick Saban. I was going to ball out. Nick Saban was the coach at LSU at the time. I was going to ball out and I was going to make the league. That was the plan. But see, what had happened was, didn't quite make it to LSU. Thank God for Southern. I told you, Southern is largely the reason why I'm an attorney. And the goal was, all right, I'm going to walk on at Southern. I'm going to ball out. And I actually got my chance. The off season, they said, look, it's just like playing ball in high school. I played defensive back. And so a skill set you needed to have was speed. Like Madden say, speed kills. And so I knew I had to continue to work on my speed. So I was training with the track team. So imagine this. I'm a freshman. I'm not on scholarship for football or track. I'm training with the track team. The people on scholarship, they don't know who I am. They don't know that I'm just out there to train for football. They think I'm trying to be on the track team. And so, y'all, I had my own experience with somebody try to check me because I was an underclassman. They didn't know who I was. I can't even remember exactly what this dude tried to get me to do, but it was on some, you are underclassman, I'm an upperclassman, I'm on the team, you gonna do what I tell you to do. Don't ask any questions, that sort of vibe. And out the gate, him and I were about to fight because I just couldn't get down like that. I'm like, dude, I'm not even trying to be on the track team. You trying to punk me. You know what I mean? Dude, I play ball. I probably bench press more than you. So y'all, it got real, but it was one of those things where it's, look, we're not having that. You know, and I'm not saying I'm this hard person and I, you know, blah, 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 where I'm from. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I didn't have the temperament to deal with that kind of stuff. And as I got older, I understood it wasn't all about all that, but I knew, how they say, know thyself. I knew it wasn't going to work for me. But think about it. That wouldn't have worked for me if I was trying to cross in a Greek life. You know what I mean? You can't just say, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to cross. It's just that simple. At least that's what I thought at the time. That's what I think now. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs, but it was that sort of thing where I can't even mentally get past that issue. And so it really makes you think, you know, now that I'm much older, it really makes you think when you look at the Caleb Wilson story. Now you think of it from a different perspective. As a father, as an uncle, what do you tell your niece, your nephew, your son, your daughter, if they want to be a part of one of these prestigious organizations? What do you tell them about that process, right? That's safe, that doesn't subject you to harm. And then if you become a part of that organization, what you tell them when they're engaged in certain activity that's kind of in that gray area? Is it just a ritual that's not criminal in nature? If it's gray, you need to stay away from it. Because again, those men who picked up those charges, they had aspirations in college too. They wanted to continue the Greek life too. They wanted to be part of something big and notable. Little did they know that day, the events that led to the death of Caleb Wilson would lead to them being in an orange jumpsuit. And so, as much as I didn't want to talk about it because I was concerned about furthering a negative message regarding my beloved Southern University, at the same time, as a criminal defense lawyer, let's talk about this. Let's talk about these issues. Let's talk about the ramifications of these particular charges. Again, I don't want to paint it with a broad brush. I recall watching this documentary by Byron Hurt. The irony of his last name being Hurt, that's just crazy to me, y'all. That's crazy to me on a different level. But Byron Hurt is a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Byron Hurt would hear stories of tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. Individuals who were pledging in these Greek organizations that ultimately died as a result of going through that pledging process. And so Mr. Hurt decided, look, I can't keep quiet anymore. I know my colleagues, my friends, my brothers, my frat brothers may look at me as a snitch, may look at me as breaking the code of silence, but I need to shine a light on some of the things you don't see. He started his documentary with a quote from James Baldwin. And it said, the role of the artist is exactly the same as the role of the lover. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you don't see. That's deep. So basically what he's saying is, look, I got to show you the dark side. I got to show you the ugly side, the underbelly of what's going on during the initiation process, during the pledging process. It's not all bad. I don't want this to define what Greek life and what the initiation process is all about. But my brother and my sister, I got to expose you to this because it's not all safe. And so he's bringing light to this. Some of you may have seen this already. I haven't finished it, but so far, so good. And I don't mean good as in it's unfortunate, but it's compelling. Let's just say that. And so he's talking about this culture. And what he shared was when Caleb Wilson died, so many people hit him up. So many people reached out to him, said, man, you were right. You know, initially I felt some type of way when you came out with this, but, you know, we got another one who died. Unfortunately, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity is involved. And so, again, it's not just the Qs. It's not just the HBCUs. It's not just at the institutions. It's everywhere. I mean, we see this all the time. In that documentary, it says since 1958 all the way up until 2022, you at least had one person die of hazing. And the numbers varied, anywhere from 8 a year, 9 a year, 2, 4, just across the board, tragedies. And so most of us experience this. And if it's not even in the Greek life, maybe in a different environment, maybe sports, maybe the military, you know. I had my own experience, y'all. It's funny when I think about it. It kind of was funny when it happened, but if you think about it, it probably wasn't that funny. And one would argue that this, what I experienced, was maybe hazing, maybe just a prank. You know, boys being boys, whatever you want to call it. But let me tell y'all something. I went to high school and played football with a bunch of young men who I consider brothers. And a lot of these brothers, I'm telling y'all, were talented. Talented, y'all. And I mean that. I'm not just saying that. And you know what else about a lot of these brothers, including myself? We were clowns. We were jokesters. We always had a prank for the day. And y'all, on this particular day, yours truly was the subject of the prank. I had to been maybe a freshman, or I think I was probably a sophomore. And y'all got to understand, I was playing wide receiver at the time. This was before I changed to defensive back. Y'all, I was 135 pounds with two and a half weight plates in my pocket. Your boy was small. And what my brothers would like to do from time to time is shove one of their fellow teammates in a locker. Y'all, So let me set the scene for you. We had a big locker room and we had big lockers. And so, y'all, I've seen with my own eyes my teammates shove a 275-pound offensive lineman into one of these lockers. And so if he could get it, anybody could get it. And so on that particular day, y'all, this was in the middle of the day. The football team, we had our own class. It was sort of like PE, but it wasn't. We would have a class where we would meet at the facility. We would work out, work on our conditioning, lift weights, that sort of thing. And it's really players on the football team. And so it's in the middle of the day. I remember this like it was yesterday, y'all. And I see them coming to me. And they got that look on their face. Remember, I just made the varsity team. Like I said, I was probably a sophomore, maybe just finished my freshman year. But I'm looking at upperclassmen who I'm still trying to gain their respect. I'm on the team, but I'm probably not viewed as like one of the dogs, one of the brothers yet. You know what I mean? And so they coming at me with that look on their face. And I'm like, oh, no, these boys not finna do this right now. And sure enough, man, it was about, 3, 4, 5 of them boys shoving me into that locker. And how you gonna resist that? So, y'all, these boys shoved me in the locker. But get this. That's funny. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, y'all got me. It's cool. Ha, ha, ha. Them boys turned the lights out. I'm talking about a whole football team. Turned the lights out, or at least half the team who took this class. Turned the lights out. After the period was over, left your boy. I can't make this up. Left me right there. Locked locker. All right? I'm in there all by myself, lights off. It's quiet as a church mouse. You hear me? I'm talking about, you ever been in the gym and it was so quiet, all you could hear is it was so quiet, all you could hear is and I'm in the locker room and it's dark. I got that sound effect from my brother. Shout out to Huggy, man. He a clown too. If you know that boy is a clown through and through. But I'm telling you, your boy was left in this locker, and I remember it because it's when Juvenile's album just came out, 400 Degrees. And y'all, I just happened to have my cassette player. I had my headphones. I happened to have that in my jacket. And so, y'all, I promise y'all, the only thing that got me through that moment was Juvie. I ain't gonna lie. I've been there bobbing my head. It's dark. I can't yell for help because nobody in this big facility, and I'm in there talking about, give me the keys to your car when your medallion, you far away from home, use an Elliot. 400 degrees. I can't make this up, y'all. I remember this vividly. That's really what got me through. But think about it. It's funny. It's crazy. But if you think about it, what if I was claustrophobic? What if I was susceptible to having panic attacks if I was in confined areas and I had a problem breathing and all of a sudden something really, really bad happened to me? You see what I'm saying? It was funny at the time. It was a joke. We got youngsters just doing a prank. It's all cool. It's part of the process. It's how you gain our respect, whatever. But what if something bad really happened? And so it just goes to the, look, man, we were all young. We were all being silly. We were all being stupid. But at the same time, something really, really bad could happen. At that warehouse in Baton Rouge, was all part of the process, was all part of the initiation stage, was all part of the rite of passage, allegedly. Again, we don't know everything that happened, but something really, really bad happened. And yes, they weren't as young as my brothers who were in high school, but some involved were young. Some involved were get caught up. Some involved didn't fully appreciate, something bad really, really could happen. And so, y'all, ignorance of the law is not a defense. One of the individuals got charged with manslaughter. Manslaughter carries up to 40 years. Manslaughter under Louisiana law doesn't require the intent to kill. All it requires is someone killed as a result of committing a felony. right? The felony in this case is criminal hazing. Y'all, let me tell you about the significance of this particular felony. And all three of the arrestees in this particular case got charged with criminal hazing. Back in 2018, before a young man by the name of Max Grover, may he rest in peace, was killed, criminal hazing was a misdemeanor. All right? This is an incident that occurred across town at LSU, Louisiana State University. We still in Baton Rouge, y'all. Max Grover was a white male pledging at a fraternity. That night was forced to consume a whole bunch of alcohol. Some of the members of that fraternity brought him back to his room or somebody's room, left him there. When they came back the next morning, he was found dead. All right. A toxicology report revealed that his blood alcohol content level was 0.495. All right. To give it some context, the legal limit to drive is 0.08. So you can imagine how much alcohol was in his system, which led to his death. And so as a result of that incident, yes, individuals were charged. Yes, lawsuits were civilly filed. The lawyer that filed the lawsuit against LSU, against the individuals involved in this incident, against the fraternity, is the same lawyer and law firm that represents Caleb Wilson's family. But back then, pre the death of Max Grover, criminal hazing was a misdemeanor. And so the person that was primarily responsible for Max Grover's death was only charged with negligent homicide because there was no felony to attach this killing to, right? Hazing was only a misdemeanor. So he was charged with negligent homicide. Back then, the max on negligent homicide was only 5 years. Today is 10. If you haven't listened to episode 1 of season 2, I broke that whole statute down. In the history, how it went from 5 years to 10 years. That's involving the Kyron Lacey case. But it was 5 years. He wound up being convicted. He got the max 5 years. The judge sentenced him for 2.5 years and suspended the remaining 2.5 years. The other individuals were involved. They were charged with misdemeanor hazing. And so think about that, y'all. Just more or less 8 years ago, for that horrific incident, the kid got 2.5 years, 2.5 years suspended. Negligent homicide to this day is not a crime of violence. So he only had to do at the time maybe a quarter or maybe up to 33% of the 2.5 years. Again, it's not a crime of violence. On the other hand, manslaughter is a crime of violence. You have to do a minimum 85%. Criminal hazing is now a felony because of the Max Grover incident. It's called the Max Grover Act. And so you're looking at a significant difference in a span of only 8 years where somebody could get only 2.5 years. Now they can get up to 40 years, got to do 85% if convicted. I understand the facts are different, but at the same time, allegedly we have hazing. And we have, as a result of the hazing, somebody dying. And so this is not anything to play with. These are the situations where young people are not contemplating. And right now, we only have one manslaughter charge attached to one person. I would not be shocked if the DA upgraded these charges as it relates to the other individuals who only were charged with criminal hazing. I can promise you that their lawyers already advised them of that. Something could be coming down the pipeline. And then at the same time, again, we got 11 individuals who allegedly were civilly responsible. I'm not trying to stir the pot up, y'all. I'm telling you information that's already discussed, that's already talked about. This 17 years experience right here. I'm just keeping it real with you. And so it's a situation where if you got 11 individuals and that's information that was investigated by the plaintiff's lawyer's team, certainly the police know about it. And so to me, that gives me reason to believe, listen, police showed up at those individuals' doorstep and said, look, player, we know where you were on the night Caleb Wilson died. So you might as well tell us all the information right now. And you got two options. You can either be a witness or a suspect. Which one you gonna be? And y'all, let me tell you, in that process, when you in that conundrum, police at your doorstep saying, what's your choice? And so what happens in that process, that's when people begin to talk. That's when people begin to sing. That's when folks got things to say. And a lot of times what's said, it may not be the truth. It may still be a story. It may still be skewed, but people trying to save their own you know what. And so this so-called code that the streets live by and even the fraternities live by, that's out the window. Yeah, what code? What code? What we talking about? Y'all sent me the physical copy? Y'all emailed that to me? I don't know what you're talking about. What code we talking about? Oh, you talking about the code that I'm looking at up to 40 years? Let me tell you how this thing played out. And so you got a situation, again, law enforcement got to get witnesses from somewhere. We realize Caleb Wilson was dropped off at Baton Rouge General, and the story told was he collapsed from playing basketball. Allegedly. This is the information upon my research. And so we realized that wasn't true. And so, as my dad would say growing up, you tell one lie, now you got to tell another one. And then another one, and then another one. And so the real information came from somewhere, and it probably, I don't know, I'm speculating, y'all. I don't have all the information in front of me, but it probably came from one or several of those 11 individuals who were not charged, but they made a choice. They made a choice. Let me be this witness so I won't be this suspect. I'd rather be on the witness stand as opposed to sitting in that defendant seat. And a good criminal defense lawyer has to be precise when they cross-examining this witness to make sure they extract information that'll help them arrive at the truth. Because it wouldn't shock me if there's some sketchy information in between those lines. You gotta attack their credibility. Again, I don't know everything that happened, but you're going to find more information about this incident. It's a lot of more things that's going to come out. I'm going to follow this case closely. As I stated, it kind of hits home. It involves my beloved Southern University. It's tragic. It's unfortunate. But like Byron Hurt, the director of Hazing, the documentary, we got to raise some awareness on this. We can't just say this another bad story. We're seeing how you end up in an orange jumpsuit. We're seeing all the people involved who had aspirations of being part of a great experience, higher learning, meeting friends and fostering relationships, creating opportunities for your future, all the beautiful things that come from the college experience. In this case, the HBCU experience, come to a screeching halt. And unfortunately for Caleb Wilson, that's no longer possible. And so y'all, that's my time. I hate that this is another bleak and poignant episode, but we got to talk about these issues. You know, talking about hazing and what's going on these campuses. A lot of that is above my pay grade, but I can tell you how you end up in an orange jumpsuit. I can tell you how difficult it is to navigate those spaces. Y'all, that statute, manslaughter, it's not an easy one, but there's hope. Nevertheless, there's hope. On another episode, I'll talk more about the defense and certain angles and strategies you could take to defend this type of charge. That's my time, y'all. Until next time, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love. See y'all soon. One.
Call your first witness. I got Kenneth Willis. He about his business, he gon' take it the distance. Listen, he giving gaming, believing high level represent. Call your first witness. Yeah, call your first witness.
Griff has been paid for this endorsement.